This is Dave Tate with Jeremy Frey, talking about training and all kinds of things related to powerlifting, strength and conditioning, and whatever else we can come up with. First question is, why did you choose to lift in the XPC Finals? Why that meet?
I've always been in the past when I had first started doing powerlifting, and this is actually, I should say, after 96. I started powerlifting back in 96 when I was in high school, but once I ran into a venue, it was probably 2005, it was a APF meet at the time, up in Dubuque, Iowa. It was just a really good venue. I always get drawn to places where, hey, if you show up and it's a really well-ran meet and things go really well, and not just from a performance standpoint, but how many lifters you have, running people through it, quality feedback, quality judging, things like that. I've always just been drawn to very well run and competitive meets. My first venture with the XPC was in 2012 when they had it. It was not at the Arnold, but I went to the 2012 XPC. It was a very well ran meet, great venue, pretty decent crowd, really good competitors. Being there and competing with them, being on the platform there, performed pretty well, and I just liked the way the meet was run. I did appreciate the judging. The judging seemed to be relatively fair, pretty consistent across the board. I think that's something that they have proven, the XPC at least has proven to uphold, which is at least consistent judging. So just, attracted to actually just a well-run meet, quality competitors, somewhere you can go and pretty much enjoy your time there competing, as opposed to worrying about X, Y, Z. You got plenty of equipment to warm up on. You get plenty of time to warm up, and they really get you in and out as fast and efficiently as they possibly can. It's just set up for the lifter. So,
to those that may not be familiar with the sport, you named a couple things, but what would be some things that constitute a well-run meet?
The time in between flights is very, as long as going from squat to bench to deadlift, going from flight 1 to flight 2 to flight 3. So you might be in the squat, you might have 3 flights of squatters because you got maybe 45 guys there. Going from flight 1, your first attempt, your second attempt, to your third attempt, keeping that very efficient, getting the bar loaded, making sure there's a 1-minute countdown, make sure guys get on the platforms. They're not stalling for time, guys. That if your knees aren't wrapped and you're not up to the platform in the amount of time and you're called out, keeping a meet running, that means keeps everybody on the same keel, keeps everybody held to the same standards. You don't have to. If I'm someone that's waiting, I don't have to wrap my knees personally. But if I'm someone who's waiting behind a guy that is wrapping his knees and I'm getting my straps set up, and all of a sudden he's like, "Oh, I need more time." And all of a sudden, I'm getting more time than I actually want. I was at a meet one point in time, I'm not going to name what venue it was, but I was at a meet where it was 45 minutes between my first attempt and my second attempt to squat. It was absolutely ridiculous, So within that 45 minutes, my legs did, you're sitting in a chair pretty much the entire time. They blow up. Meets cannot be run like that. They should be suited for the lifter, but it should be consistent across the board for everybody. It shouldn't be something where you're literally having to be there for 12 hours just to do, 12 hours later, you're finally pulling your last deadlift and you're smoked for the day. So moving from squat to bench, from your first attempt, your second attempt, your third attempt, to the next movement, so on and so forth, keeping that moving, keeping it very much regulated so that everybody has the equal amount of time that they need to get those things taken care of. I think that that's a very well-run meet, besides obviously the judging and keeping things rolling. Like I said, you don't want to, if you've ever competed in powerlifting, if you've ever been in multi-ply gear, especially, you're wearing knee wraps, you got the full gear, you don't want to be squatting at 10 o'clock in the morning, and like I said, pulling your last deadlift maybe 10 hours later at 10 o'clock at night. Your body's going to be shot, you're not going to feel very good, and that's pretty much it's just not going to, it's not set up for the lifter, it's not set up for you to be successful, in my personal opinion.
Now, you've been in the sport for a long time. I can't remember when I first met you, but it was at DeFranco's. It was a DeFranco seminar. And I think you just coming back from Finland, I believe. Yep. In the WPC Worlds. How many years have you been competing?
My first competition, I started off raw, was back in 1996 when I was a freshman in high school. So even then I was not training for meets. It was my first powerlifting experience. Coach took us to, said, hey, there's a meet local. squat, bench, and deadlift. And I was very much interested. I was always loved lifting. I always was a strong lifter. I've been lifting since I was 11 years old. So that's kind of how it got started. Just in high school, football coach, got a local thing. X amount of us players went down there, competed, and we did that the following year and the next year. So been competing 96 to 2014 for off and on for 18 years now at this point in time. Everything was raw up until college. My senior year of college, I got my first single ply squat suit. Never been in gear before. I didn't know how to work the shit. I always had really good squat technique. So when I put that suit on, I didn't know what to expect. It didn't affect my form and technique, and all of a sudden, some weight that I was maybe squatting for a single, I was able to knock out for 5. It just amazed me at how much support you can get and how much support you can get out of a squat suit and a little bit of rebound out of the bottom. And single ply is a lot obviously easier to learn, but now I'm getting off track. But got into single ply gear, finally, then eventually got into multi-ply gear, went and did the WPC. 2005, I did a regional meet, APC, and then we did junior nationals, and then junior worlds over in Finland. Was able to travel over to Finland and actually compete there, and was lucky enough training wise. And the quality lifters over there, I had 5 people in my weight class, and one person was from one different country, everybody around, and I was lucky enough to come out on top of that meet. It was a really good experience, and that just kind of kept progressing from there until I met you in 2007. I think it was 2007 at DeFranco's. So I'd taken about 2005, 2006, I'd taken a job, my first strength and conditioning head job. So I'd taken a year off during that time, and it was just starting to get back into it when I ran into you. So knew of you and everything. Had talked to Jim beforehand. But
I think when we met, you were actually still an assistant wherever you were working.
Yep.
I believe. And you've been with us for close to 10 years, maybe even 9, 10 years, maybe a little bit more. And, I've seen your career go from being, an assistant to a head coach, assistant back to a head coach. I've seen your life evolve going from pretty much a person whose main priority was just powerlifting to trying to balance, work, family, child, life, drama and all those other things. And when you're moving through powerlifting, through the stages of life that you've gone through over the past 10 years, powerlifting takes different priorities, and for probably 9 out of 10 guys, they would have quit. Why'd you stay?
That's a good question, because it's easier to quit than to stay. I'm not a quitter. That's the only thing I can ever say, and that's
nobody would have thought you were.
Yeah, well, for me, and I mean that with life, with everything that I ever. And I don't want to sit here and talk about adversity. I think life's life, just like you put it. Life happens, and how you deal with that and how you come back from that says a lot about your character and integrity. And the way I was raised and the way I was brought up, you do what you got to do to keep life moving forward, and that's what you have to do. So quitting was never an option on anything that I've done, and so that whether that be with powerlifting, having a kid, going through life changes, all the things I've done with work, priorities with family. My priorities today are family, work, and if I got time for powerlifting, that's where it is. I'm not going to sacrifice the first 2 ever. And luckily, I'm in a good place right now where I don't have to. I can actually do the third, and everything will be fine with that. But ever since day one, and I'm not patting myself on the back, it's just how I was raised, is, I've always been a leader. I've always been captain or president or whatever else. I always wanted to excel. I don't want to be a follower. I don't want to necessarily be a leader, but I'm going to go out and do what I have to do to be the best at whatever I decide to do it. And I'm not going to, at times I'd sacrifice some things in my life to make those things happen that I look back on, and can't say I'm not proud of what I did. I look back and say I was at a different point in time in my life, and that's what was a priority at that point in time, and things have switched since then. But long story short of it is that I'm not a quitter. I excel at everything that I want to do, and if you're going to put something towards it, then either, I wouldn't say go all in, like I said, you go all in, and my all in is based off of my priorities in my life at this point in time. I'm all in with my family, I'm all in with my work, and if I can give everything, if I have anything else to give towards powerlifting, and I decide to do that, well, then I'm going to do that as well, but not to the sacrifice of the other things that are in my life. And maybe I'm not answering your question.
Yeah, and as an outsider looking in over the past 10 years, I've seen powerlifting move from the first priority down to the third, but you become a better lifter. Yeah. How?
It's a good question. I don't know if I want to sit here and say age or wisdom, but you learn a lot as you go through life and everything that you continue on with. I mean, you find ways to make things happen. If I've become a better lifter, even having adversity thrown at me, like I said, you just keep excelling at what you want to do. How to answer that is, I don't like to talk about myself and pat myself on the back. I'm not a person that does that. Life has happened. I take it head on, do the best I possibly can, make sure I come out on top one way or another, make sure I'm not sacrificing things that I don't want to sacrifice, and trying to be smart with everything. You literally have to be really good at being time management and prioritizing and being smart with everything you do. So with lifting, as life has changed, so is my programming, and so is the way that I attack the lifts. If I had back in the day, had more time to do it, and I took that time. Nowadays, I don't have more time to do it. I don't have as much time as I used to have, so things have to change, and you have to get smarter with what you're doing. You have to be more efficient with the time that you do have, and you got to use that efficiently as well. Be smart about it, and hopefully through those years I've learned something and obviously been able to some degree at least, be successful with that, even as life has kicked me in the ass sometimes.
What are a couple examples that you can give of that efficiency that you were talking about that you've had to make over the last few years as far as time management with the training, not having as much time but becoming more efficient? In what ways?
I think life's about sacrificing things that you don't need. You take care of your needs. You might have wants. How I become more efficient is you have your priorities, you set them up. You know what needs to be done first. So if there's needs like, hey, son's got to be taken care of, number one. It's going to happen. Nothing's going to be sacrificed in that. So take care of that, prioritizing wise and time wise, and setting all that up. So take care of family. Work, obviously, I have a schedule. Schedule's scheduled out. It is what it is. You have X amount of groups in the morning. You have X amount of groups at night. You have a schedule to maintain with that. So there's that part of the schedule. When you got to pick your son up and you got to drop him off at daycare, if that's what's going on. Literally, he's part-time daycare, and I take care of him twice a week. There's times to be efficient with that, though, as well. It's just knowing what you have, writing it all down, knowing what you have to get accomplished, things that need to be done, and then throwing other things in. During that time, you're going to sacrifice other stuff. So there's been times where I sacrifice a little sleep. There's times where, I don't necessarily get all the nutrition that I need to, or, have that time to sit down and eat every single damn meal that someone might lay out as a perfect nutrition program for a powerlifter. That might be sacrificed a little bit. There ain't no time for TV. You pretty much just sacrifice anything you possibly can, or you just pretty much throw the things you don't need in your life to the side to make everything else work and happen the way you want it to.
What changes have had to happen in your training, though?
What changes have had to happen in my training?
Yeah.
I have less time. I have frequency of the training is actually down. So instead of training 4 days a week, I'm down to 3. I have to train on a weekend and 2 days during the week during in-between groups that I have with lifting groups that I have with my work. The amount of time that I can spend at those have been, shorter amount of times. So what that is translated to is that to be literal, is I stick with the big movements. I do the accessory that's going to make an impact and what I need to do based off where I'm at right now, and then I move on. So programming has to be smarter. Like I said, you set it up to. I might not be able to get in everything I need in one day, but as long as I get it done within the week, or as long as I get it done within a 2 week, however I'm blocking out my programming, however I'm doing it, I will get it done, I will get it accomplished. But it's like anything else, you have your strengths, you have your weaknesses. Within powerlifting, you got to squat, you got to bench, you got to deadlift. You got to do all three, in my personal opinion. Those things have to be a staple. You set up a specialized movements to take care of the weaknesses that you have with those movements, and then you have your accessory that further take care of the weaknesses you need to maintain. And as Brian Carroll was talking earlier, there's things that were weak on him a long time ago that he had to take some time to get stronger, and he focused on those a little bit more, and literally within his big movements, they all pretty much went up and stayed the same. So design your program around your strengths, your weaknesses, and how much time you have to actually put towards that. Mine has just been, I've been less frequent with my training than I used to be in the past. So I don't know if that answers your question. But
Now you've had a gap between your last meet and this meet, probably a bigger gap than you've had in many years. And speaking to you, I can see you're looking more forward to this meet than some of the other meets that you've had in the past that I spoke to you about. What do you think contributes to you looking more forward to this meet coming up as to some of the other ones in the past?
The shit that I've had to go, put this delicately, how do you put this? The last 2 years have been tough. To go through what has went on in my life in the past 2 years, and to be able to possibly come back and continue to do something that I enjoy. And I don't enjoy it from a standpoint of, I don't go out to try to beat people. I do not go out to win a meet. I go out to compete with myself and do the best I possibly can on that day. The amount of it people want to call adversity. I've been, there's been about 3 big things happen this past 2 years that have been very stressful. And knowing that I was able to get through that, still continue to train, and get back to a point where I feel I'm able to compete has got me, I wouldn't say more excited, but it means more at this point in time. Having gone through what I've been able to go through, and still be able to return, it's I don't know if it's any different from when I came back from my knee surgery. The first time I came back from my knee surgery and did my first meet, I had to, it is as much of a candy ass as people might want to say. I was extremely emotional when I went to that first squat. I mean, I literally couldn't have any torque, couldn't have anything. The arousal at that point in time that I had was through the roof. I mean, I literally was shaking, almost like thought I was going to have tears, not because, well, it was just being back and be able to get back and coming back from something that could have set you back, you could have quit on, but here you are again, and you're going, and it is what it is. So it means a lot to get back to this point, to feel good about everything that's going on in my life, to actually get kind of past a lot of that stress that was going on, and to settle back down into a good life, just things being equal, things being more stable, and being able to get back to something that I've truly enjoyed I've been training for over 20 years, something that I've been truly enjoyed to get back to. It's just, it means a lot.
So would you say that this meet is more of an emotional comeback than it is a physical one?
Yeah, I need to get back on the platform. It's just one of those things where whatever preparation level I'm going to have at that point in time is going to be what it is. And I know I need to get back on the platform to write things in my head, just to literally I wouldn't say put an end to what the past 2 years have been, just put a good resolution, and I wouldn't say a fresh start to powerlifting, but just continue to keep moving forward with everything.
Do you see this meet as putting closure on the past?
It'll put some closure. It definitely will put some closure on a few things that I won't mention. Just it'll help seal some things for me.
Is this why you do what you do?
It's hard to say why I do what I don't know if it's hard for me to say I do what I do. Like I said, I don't like to talk about me.
I think you already answered it, Jeremy.
Yeah.
That's it. This is Dave Tate with Jeremy Frey.